Good morning to everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order and welcome all members of council joining us both in person and virtually this morning. Welcome to all of our staff and attendants that will provide us facts and information so we can make decisions in the best interest of the corporation of ACW and all of our residents, whether they're full-time or seasonal residents. Welcome also to all members of the public that are joining us this morning and any members of the media that may also be joining us. I would like to indicate at the outset that meetings of council are live streamed on the Township's official website in accordance with the live streaming and virtual participation of meetings policy. Do any members of council have a pecuniary interest to indicate at this time of any agenda item that we have today? Thank you very much. We do have two sets of minutes, being the 4th of March and the Committee of Adjustment on the same day. And I would entertain a mover and a seconder for the adoption of these minutes. And that would be Councillor Blake and Forrester. Are there any questions on any of these minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you. Open forum is an opportunity for any members of the public to make any comments that they would care to regarding any agenda item today. And I would like to stress that make sure it is pertinent to the agenda item. So, and anyone would have up to 5 minutes to speak on any agenda item that we have today. Are there any members of the public that would like to make any comments at this time? Seeing none, thank you for that. We do have a delegation today, and I would like to welcome Gina McDonald to address council on the aggregate policies. And Gina, welcome. And just for the record, just indicate your first and last name if you would, and you'll have up to 10 minutes in your delegation.
Right,
please.
I just have to get the technology figured out. Okay, Kelly, what do I do now? All right, so we do that, right? No, oh, that's right, share screen. And then start broadcast. Wait, 2, 3, 1. Oops, that didn't work. So, all right, it should be coming up. Perfect, perfect. All right. Thank you, Mayor, council staff, and fellow citizens for allowing me this opportunity to speak before you today. I'm Gina McDonald, a resident of ACW. I'd like to start by apologizing to council for the volume of my written submission. I only hope that you've had enough time to go over all the materials and many links provided. If not, I urge you to find time to have a good look. They offer the numbers and sources necessary to fully understand the situation. The unsustainability of the current rates of both farmland loss and extraction approvals, locally and in all of Ontario, are drawing increasing attention, which have led to studies being done, resulting in a significant increase in available information. For over 10 years, I've been bringing information to council about the gravel industry. I've seen us go through several OMB, LPAT, and now OLT hearings about this subject. I think you all agree this has to stop. An ever-growing number of our community members, your constituents, are angry and feeling helpless. It's time to act and do something about it, just like other municipalities are doing. Together, we will be heard. Behind me are 2 photos that Bob is going to help me point out to you. The first, got it. The first is a beautiful image of the Maitland watershed. The image is created by hydrogeologist Steve Shikazi, I think it's pronounced. On the far left is Lake Huron. just to the right, at the bottom, is where Aggregate Alley is along Sharps Creek line. Sharps Creek runs between these two. And just to the left of that is here, where we are now. This gives us an idea of how vast an area makes up this watershed and how so much of our land use does, and will, you're really good at this, Bob, and will affect that watershed. The second photo, yeah, there we go. The second photo is one that Bob took in September of 2024 from our new home on Cherrydale Road that we moved into a month earlier. The photo was taken looking eastward over the soybean field being harvested just south of the Durst McCann pit on Sharps Creek Line. The pit entrance is where the buildings are on the left of the photo. The field is on the right, where the dust is rising from. Thanks, Bob. We got it. Harvesting is a dusty business, but you'll have to admit, this is extreme. There was so much drifted dust built up on these beans in their short lifetime. Throughout last summer and fall, Bob and I had to wipe the dust off the table and chairs every day in our screened-in porch before being able to sit there. As we're now learning, aggregate dust is a serious health concern. Canadian ambient air standards are several years behind the World Health Organization's recommendations. It's the dust particles we can't see that are the most dangerous and are known carcinogens. The municipalities of Caledon, Burlington, and Halton have all passed motions to implement the World Health Organization standards for ambient air. For our health, so should we. If we're seeing this much dust drift, try to imagine how far the really small, invisible particles are traveling. The town of Caledon did extensive aggregate studies, or strategies, reviews and studies, leading them to a very recent in-depth amendment to their official plan, which included dust control, dust monitoring, protection of water resources, data sharing, transparency, and reporting. We can use these resources to make our own official plan more robust, to protect our farmland, it's who we are, our air, which is essential to our health, our water, which is essential to our environment, our health, and our farms. ACW needs to join the 20 municipalities across Ontario that have signed the Reform Gravel Mining Coalition's, also known as RGMC, DAM campaign, which stands for Demand a Moratorium Now. This campaign demands a moratorium, a temporary pause, on all new approvals for gravel mining in Ontario, including interim orders and site plan amendments for mining below the water table, or that increase licensed tonnages. The purpose of a moratorium is to allow time to conduct a broad consultation process to chart a new path forward. The consultation must include Indigenous nations, affected communities, independent experts, and scientists. It is imperative that we protect farmland, groundwater, and threatened species, that we increase the weight of local perspectives in land use planning, such as our councils and citizen groups, that we ensure long-term supply of gravel, which is a finite resource, that we honor treaties with Indigenous nations and obligations as prescribed in the Canadian Constitution and the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and that we prevent greater climate chaos. I also strongly urge Council to appoint one of its members to represent ACW and join TAPMO, which stands for the Top Aggregate Producing Municipalities of Ontario. TAPMO currently has 29 member municipalities that are working together with industry partners and provincial decision makers to develop a sustainable plan for aggregate extraction. With ACW having 55 active pits in its 587 square kilometers, Colborne Ward alone has over 436 acres of active pits in its 144 square kilometers. We more than qualify as a top producing aggregate municipality in Ontario. We need to be at the table with our peers. I have 3 important asks from Council today. 1, of prime importance, please implement the World Health Organization's standards for ambient air and strengthen our official plan around water resources, data sharing, transparency, and reporting. 2, also important, please join the 20 other municipalities and sign RGMC's DAM campaign. 3, lastly, and at the very least, right away, please join TAPMO, the top aggregate producing municipalities of Ontario. Thank you for your time and consideration. Now I have to figure out how to get us out of this.
Thank you very much, Gina, for your presentation to Council this morning. Appreciate it. Now I'd like to move on to our Treasury Department, And that would be the payment of the current accounts. And, oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple questions. Is it okay to talk about this right now, or are we tabling this to another meeting?
No, we can have questions. There'll be no discussion or dialogue. However, questions for clarification, absolutely, please.
Okay, so a couple questions. First ones are to Gina. If you're still there, Gina, I'm sorry.
I'm here.
Yeah, yes, she is. Yes, please go ahead, Councillor Miltenberg.
Okay, is this initiative connected in any way to the Long Lakes Falls Bridge initiative that's going on in our municipality?
No, it's not.
Okay, thank you. My second question is, will a moratorium that you're asking for change the picture that you see out your window?
It will in the future, potentially. It's not going to change what I'm seeing right now. It's not going to take away what's already there. It's only to help us plan for the future and put some kind of controls potentially on pit applications and aggregate extraction in the province.
Okay, so I asked those questions and I pretty well already knew the answers because I first met Gina, I'm guessing some 10 years ago, when there was a different pit that she was protesting that it was being done correctly. And so particularly in the light of what's going on in ACW recently, I'd like to make it clear, at least I feel very confident saying that this is a long-term interest and passion and is not related specifically to what's going on right now. So having said that, I now have a question for staff. Because this has been an ongoing issue, I actually have had two presentations, or ACW has, and I was a spokesperson at both. One was about maybe 3 years ago at a Roma conference, and the most recent one was in AMO of 2023, which was Ottawa. So at the first conference, I'm going to say it's probably 4 years ago, we were told very bluntly that the emphasis was more homes faster, and that was the answer. So at this last one, I handed in quite a lot of information, which everyone on council saw, plus a large document from Reform Gravel, and I asked the government of Ontario, and there were several of them sitting across from us, the minister was there, to answer that, because there were a lot of comments in there, and it wasn't my job to figure out if they were correct, but they were certainly concerning. And I also handed them their own copy of their own report, which seemed to echo exactly what Reform Gravel was saying. And at that point, and I did go back and read my notes, and I also looked at the meeting of September 3rd, in which I reported on this meeting with the minister. And Glenn, actually, you did the speaking about what the minister said, and I added it. So these are actually your words, that the minister told us that they were aware of the issues, that there were more inspectors in place, that they were doing a better job of rehabbing the existing ones. I spoke about the preponderance of below-level water table, that they're okay, but when you have so many in an area which has a high water table, is that an issue? And the minister answered, well, he'd be interested in a study of that, and did we have one? And I replied, no, we don't have one, but really it's your job to have one. And we invited them to come to our municipality, and they said they'd be interested. And so I said, okay, let's give the municipality or the province time to answer these questions, time to respond to our invitation. Have we heard anything back from the municipality? That is not the municipality, sorry, the province.
Right. Thanks for the question. I'll defer to our staff, please. CAO?
I'm not aware of anything, and I looked to the clerk because the clerk would get the notice.
I recall a conversation, however, off the top of my head, I don't have a direct answer for you, Jennifer.
Okay, so then moving forward, and Gina, I appreciate your comments about the length of it because I did read it. I did not get through all of your, and I appreciate that they were there, the articles that would fact check your statements. And I don't like to move on things till I've seen that the statements are actually fact. I was going to ask for this to be brought to a future meeting. So that's what I would like to do with this, Glenn. I would like staff to find out if there was any response from the province. I'd like to specifically see if what they told us they were doing actually happened in reference to the number of inspectors, because the Auditor General, their own Auditor General's report was damning. It was absolutely damning on the job the province has done so far. And I understand it needs to come from the top, but this has been a conversation ongoing. And I would like that question answered. I would like to have time to go through all the articles to make sure that this, although Gina, I'm not doubting you, but I always doubt people. So yes, I am doubting you. Check that this is a factual document which was given to us. Go down in the weeds, as we say, and make sure it's correct. And then I would like to have this up for conversation. I have one more question for Gina. Is that all right, Glenn?
Yeah, yes, okay, continue and then we'll circle back, please. Okay.
Gina, my specific question to you, and we have not spoken in quite some time, is you talked about how Canada is way behind the WHO in regards to air quality. I'm going to take that at its face value. I haven't checked that. And there is a number of municipalities, 20, I believe, that are adopting it or something. My question to you is, are you going higher with this? I understand why you're doing ACW, because 50 of the 130 or whatever it is are in ACW. But it seems to me it's also a county problem, and it's also an Ontario problem, and a Canadian one if we're not up to the standards. I know we just recently had to come up to the arsenic standards that everybody else was doing. So if we're not up to the air quality, and speaking as someone who suffers from asthma, that really interests me. So can you speak to your approach on that?
Thank you for the question. Gina, please.
So there are 3 municipalities that have adopted that already. Our current standards date back to, I think, the 2012, whereas there's a 2021. I think that's, I'd have to look that up to be exactly sure of what the World Health Organization's most recent standard was set. Yes, it would be nice to see it go national, but I think we have to start small and work our way up. If there's 3 municipalities and we're the 4th, then maybe the counties will start to do it as well, and then it'll escalate to putting more pressure on Ontario to adopt the more recent standards.
Okay, so along with my ask for the tabling, I'd also like to see the information, the specifics on the air quality, and how far we are behind. Like, there's an ask to adopt them, but without the specifics of how far behind we are and all that, I would need more information before I could support that. And back to you, Glenn.
So the links that I sent have that information in them, and then the appendix were the actual motions passed by the other municipalities, and they list it within them those numbers and dates and all of that kind of stuff is actually in the town, or the other town motions. Okay,
thank you. Sorry, back to you, Glenn.
Yeah, okay. I see Councillor Snowden, please, and then I'll circle back to you, Councillor Miltenberg.
Thank you. A question for Gina. Gina, one of your 3 asks was to ask Council to send a representative on behalf of ACW to the organization TAPMO. Could you tell us what you feel Council would gain from that, and what is involved in that? It doesn't seem like a big ask for me, but we need to know a little bit more about the details of where that organization meets, how they meet, what's discussed, and how you think that would benefit ACW and your cause in terms of implementing some kind of strategy um, to defer some of the aggregate dust within the areas of gravel pits.
Okay, thank you for the question, Councillor Snowden. Gina, please.
So TAPMO is really an organization made up of different municipalities that they work together. They share information, so it's a great resource. It might be a learning curve for ACW to kind of catch up with where some of the other municipalities are, but it's a chance to do that in working with your peers, so you're not feeling like you're being told to do something by somebody like me. What was the other part of that question?
Well, can you tell us a little bit, like, did they meet monthly, quarterly, and do they meet on Zoom? Where are the meetings? And how do you think that would look for a representative from ACW Council?
So they're basically made up of representatives from councils from all of the municipalities that are members. So I think there are 29 of them. And I believe they meet largely virtually, but they may do the occasional in person. I don't know about that. I think they meet like every 2 months, roughly. So it's not a huge amount, but they are, like I said before, a really great resource because they know a lot about the industry and they're working together with the industry as well and working with industry leaders too.
Thank you. Then my question to staff is, I'm wondering if staff knows about this organization and if staff sees that this would be beneficial, or should we ask staff to look into this a little further?
Okay, thank you for the question. I'll defer to our clerk, please.
Just to clarify, and I think my question is kind of both to you and to Anita and to Councillor Miltenberg. I understand that, Councillor Miltenberg, your request is to have this item deferred to another meeting that is the same presentation brought back, just for more time to consider what's in it. And I think that might give other members an opportunity to kind of look into what these organizations are and what the membership includes. As far as staff's input's concerned right now, my understanding is that you're looking to have clarification on what the response was from the Ministry of Natural Resources in terms of, coming to a council meeting to make some presentation on education on what's involved in the aggregate process. Is that a good comprehension of what is being requested?
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you for that, clerk. And I'll defer to Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yes, I would also like to know, their statement at the time was that one of the ways they were addressing the multitude of problems that were in that report is that they had hired additional inspectors. And I'm wondering if there's some way we can see you could hire one and say it was an additional. I'd like to know, is the province really taking this seriously? I know Gina's been doing this for 10 years, and I'm sorry to throw you under the bus or put you on a pedestal, whichever it is there, Gina, but there's a trickle down and then there's a trickle up, and the trickle down has not been trickling down here very rapidly. So I'd like to see what kind of efforts are actually being made. I personally have been the spokesperson, but ACW has spoken to them twice now, and the first time I felt our fears were just brushed aside, and the second time it was okay, we're handling it. And I asked for a response, and we asked, and they said they would, and I'd like to know if there was one. So, because there's two sides. If they're not, then I think we need to do something. And if they are doing it, then I'd say, okay, you have to prepare for a certain amount of inertia in politics, and it's quite frustrating, but it looks like things are moving. And I'd like to know what the correct answer is. So.
Oh, okay, Gina, please.
I have sort of an answer to that, in that I actually called the people in charge of inspections in our area within the Ministry of Natural Resources to see if there'd been a change in what they've done. Now, I didn't bring that information with me, but I did have a fairly lengthy conversation a couple of months ago with the person in charge. And they have changed things, but they haven't really hired more people. They've just sort of reorganized how they do it, if that answers. But I would have to look up any details, and I can provide you with that if you would like that information.
Okay, so I think the path forward on this, Councillor Miltenberg, would we direct staff to reach out to the ministry again and request a representative to come to ACW Council to answer any questions that we may have on this, and we would address this at a future meeting? Would that be appropriate? Councillor Miltenberg, for what you're thinking, please.
No, I don't think so. Simply because if I was the minister and somebody said, "You come, we want to ask you questions," I'd be like, I don't think so. Like, what exactly? I don't want to go into any meeting unprepared. I wouldn't do that. I'd say, what are your questions? What do you want to know? Give me specifics. We asked them specific question. I'm going to say 7 to 8 people wrote them down. They said they'd respond. We invited them because we followed up and said, did that invitation get sent? Or I forget who was doing it now. That's not in my notes. But I know we spoke about doing it. And I can go through every other meeting to see which one we talked about it at too. But I'd like to know because, I mean, it's been 6, 7, 8 months. I'd like to know what they've done in the meantime. And if they're not going to do anything, then why do we go to these delegations and sit there? That's just my frustration coming out. Sorry. I'd like to know the response. And I think that the way that you're putting it, Mayor Glenn, I wouldn't answer that. So I can't imagine that a minister would. I'd like this back on the agenda. I'd like staff to see if there was ever anything that came in. I don't recall seeing it, so I mean, I'm highly doubtful, but we were assured of it. I'd like to see Gina's numbers so that I can check them, and I'd like time to go through all the weeds that she sent so that I'm sure that her statements are accurate. That's what I'd like.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe my comments were misinterpreted, or I did not say them clearly. It is your desire to bring this back to a future meeting for discussion, and we'll have probably more questions and answers. And at that point in time, we will request our staff to reach out to obtain some answers. Is that a reasonable? You'd like it to come back to a future meeting?
I'd like it to come back to a future meeting, and by then they can check and see if anything was ever sent and replied to. Like, so then we have that at least. And then we can decide a path going forward at the next conversation. And at that point, I will have time to have read the thousands of pages, I think it is, that are on this agenda. Well, okay, maybe only 100 or so. But yeah, that's what I would like.
Absolutely. Clerk, did you have any comment before I go to Deputy Mayor, please? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to see us, as you say, bring this back to another meeting, but I would like to have a staff report on it so that when it does come back to the meeting, I know the 3 asks that Gina had, whether what they curtail, and also a lot of the questions that Jennifer had. So I think they could have that kind of rolled into a ball for us, bring it back to another meeting, and then we can have a really good discussion on it, because right now there's a whole lot of unknowns. So if that would work, I would so move that.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask for a show of hands if we would like this to come back to a future meeting, and staff in the interim to reach out to obtain more information that would be beneficial to council for that discussion. Is that fair? CAO, please.
Just to be fair to staff, we don't know what you're wanting to seek. So I would suggest to remain the course that Florence suggested, that we see if M&R responded, and bring back Gina's report, and council can bring back their questions to the next meeting, because right now we don't know what your questions are, and it's pretty hard for us to read your minds right now what your questions are.
Yes, okay, so we're going to bring this back to a future meeting. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
I would agree with that, except for one thing. I think that her first ask is to adopt the air quality, then that is in the information she sent. Number 2, RGMC's Join the Dam campaign. I think we can do our own reading on that. Become a member of TAPMO. I mean, I think Councillor Snowblin had some valid points. And for all of us to try to figure out, like, we're talking about a budgetary thing. That's why she asked those questions. I'm assuming part of it was, what would the budget be? How often does the member have to go? You know, where do they have to go? What would it accomplish? And then we can decide for monetary reasons if that's a good idea. And I think for all of us to try to figure out, that's wasted. It's just yes and no answers. It's not making an opinion. So I would like in that staff report to reach out to TAPMO to say, okay, what's it cost? What's the expectation? Do we get a report at the end of it? Like, what data are we getting from this? And I think that rather than 7 people trying to figure that out, that, because it's so black and white, could be included in the staff report.
That fair, staff? Yep, understood. Okay, any further comments? Wayne, Councillor Forster, please.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. I sympathize you with the dust problem. I have a pit, it's a block away. I hear it, but I don't get. But my problem is we all see them going by here. Where's the gravel supposed to come from? If it's not coming out of your backyard, it's going to have to come out of somewhere.
If you, one of the studies was a supply and demand study, there was a link for that, which is showing that we're only using 30, or there's enough gravel license to supply 38 years worth of what we are actually using at the current rate. So the industry saying that they need more pits is not true. There's already 38 times more than what we need.
But once a load of gravel's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
gotta.
That's right.
I get that, but I have a hard time swallowing that. But that's just my thoughts. So.
Well, the
Okay.
figures are all in that
Okay.
study, and it's done by the ministry, so it's not a.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a sentiment to bring the, Councillor Snowblin, please.
I just wanted to dovetail on Councillor Miltenberg's comment about the TAPMO. I see Gina has 3 asks of council, and I think the Deputy Mayor mentioned that as well. I don't think it would be too onerous to ask staff to investigate the 3 asks. And in terms of the TAPMO, just from Gina's comments, I see that as a low-level ask and not a really hard task to try to figure out if it would be beneficial to council and look at a little bit more information. I think this is baby steps towards what Gina's goal is, but we have to start somewhere. And I think what Councillor Miltenberg has suggested, going back to the ministry, seeing if they've answered any of the questions that she presented in the delegation, and to investigate the 3 asks that Gina has put forward today. I see that as a place to start, and as I said, baby steps.
Okay, thank you for that. Staff, you're good with that direction? CAO?
I look to the clerks.
Okay, so we're going to circle back on that. This topic comes back to a future meeting, and we've asked for a staff report as far as gathering information on what Councillor Snowblin cited. So I'm going to ask for show of hands if council is in support of this. And that is supported by council. Thank you. And thank you, Gina. Okay, so moving on to the payment of the current accounts, I would entertain a mover and a seconder for these, please. And that is Councillor Hickey, Deputy Mayor Vanstone, that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council hereby authorize the payment of the March 2025 accounts as presented. Do we have any questions on any of these numbers? And if not, all in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you. And 6.2 is the payment of the previous month's actual accounts, and I would entertain a mover and a seconder for these, please. Councillor Blake moves, Councillor Miltenberg seconds, that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council hereby approves the payment of the February 2025 accounts in the amount of $1,372,734.46. Are there any questions on any of these numbers? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you. And finally, in this section is the summary of the revenue/expenditure reports, and I will entertain a mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Hickey, Deputy Mayor Vanstone, that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council adopts the summary revenue/expenditure reports as written for the Township, Lucknow and District Medical Center, at Lucknow and District Recreation from January and February of 2025. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you. We don't have anything under planning today. The building report is under 8.1 that has been prepared by our CBO, Joy Lindsay, is for information purposes. Do we have any questions on this report? Seeing none, thank you very much to yourself and your colleagues, Joy, in this department. Under administration, we have a Community Emergency Management Coordinator appointment. Do we have any questions on this? And seeing none, I'll ask for a show of hands if we're in support of considering this in Section 18 as a bylaw. And that is supported by council. I thank you. Under the water, we have two sections. One is the Veolia Water Operations and Maintenance Report for information purposes. Again, do we have any questions on this? And if not, we'll follow along with the 2024 Annual Drinking Water System and Compliance Reports for all of the water systems that are listed. And again, any questions or comments on this? And if not, I'll entertain a mover and a seconder to accept the annual reports. And that is Councillor Snoblin and Miltenberg. That Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council hereby accepts the 2024 annual water reports as submitted by Veolia for the Ben Miller, Century Heights, Dungannon, Huron Sands, Lakeshore, and Lucknow District water systems. All in favor of the motion as read. And that is carried. Thank you. Nothing under drainage today. Public Works is the current curbside pickup proposal. We had a presentation at this at a previous meeting. And I will ask, do we have any questions on this at this point in time? Councillor Hickey, please.
Thank you. Question for Tom, I guess. The 5-year term, are there any other options to that? That seems like a long time to get into an agreement when we don't know really what the costs are going to be, especially with the opt-out option for people. That cost could escalate quite high, especially after the first year. Is there any other options than a 5-year?
Okay, thanks for the question. Tom, please, at your pleasure.
So the reason it's a 5-year and it's in keeping with a lot of the other waste contracts I've done is because they've got to amortize the cost of the trucks. So I've done 2 5-year contracts. Usually they have options for further years. When you make smaller contracts, the value of the contracts tends to go through the roof because they don't know, they have no assurity that you're going to be able to cover the cost of the truck. So the reason it's 5 years is to spread out the cost.
Okay, thanks for that. You're good with that, Councillor Hickey. Deputy Mayor, please.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is the place to ask this or not, but as Evan said, the opting out factor, which I wrote down here, how will that happen? Like if, well, let's say I opt out and 4 others are opt out, then that cost will have to be then uploaded to the ones that are using it, I'm assuming. So what if we get, say, half the community that wants to opt out, the other half is going to take up a lot more money. Is that the way it is? At least that's the way I understand it right now. So I'm just wondering.
Okay, question. The AO, please.
The contract is what the contract is. The opting out has nothing to do with the price. The opting out is because, excuse me, is because you're getting a bin and you're putting garbage in it. You're not putting a bag tag on it, so which means that's the revenue to offset the original bag tags. If you're opting out, you're not getting a bin, and you're taking your refuse to the landfill site and paying the appropriate fees as you go over the scale. The truck's still going down the road by, let's say, a road with 20 people on, and let's say 5 people opt out. You're still paying for that truck to go down the road, and you can still opt in when you choose.
Okay, thank you for that. You're okay with that? Councillor Snoblin, please.
Thank you. I had a discussion with Mark, the CAO, Mark Becker, on this a few weeks ago, and I'm hoping that he can offer an explanation to council because he did explain it to me quite well. So council has been asked several times by residents if they could have a weekly schedule. And I pointed out to the CAO at the time and said, you know, but it was me, and it was a difference between paying $39.92 as opposed to paying $142.41 to get weekly pickup. I'd be happy to kick in the extra $100 or so and get weekly pickup. And he had a really great explanation, and I wonder if he could remember what he said to me about that. And just for the record.
Okay, thank you very much. CAO, please.
Okay, I'm gonna assume my comment was that if council decided to go with weekly pickup through the entire municipality, that the municipal tax levy would need to increase 5.5% to the levy alone just to pay for the increased cost of weekly pickup. I hope that is the answer you're looking for, Anita.
Yes, it was tied to the levy, and I couldn't remember the amount. You said 5.5%, and we just passed the budget. And I have to go back to my notes now, recall on the levy, we passed, what did we pass on that levy? It was 5% rate on the levy, wasn't it? So it would be an additional 5.5% on the levy if we were to go that route. Does that sound correct?
CAO, please.
That's correct.
So I just wanted to have that in the public realm, because as I said, when I look at that report, I'd say like, hey, cost me an extra $100 and some odd, $110 a year, sign me up, I'll get weekly. But it's not as simple as what it seems to be at face value. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for that comment. Any
other question?
Oh, yeah, please, Councillor Snowblood.
It has nothing to do related to the other question. So is there any explanation, or did anybody ask, the waste tonnage has gone up significantly from 2018 to 2024. Is there any reasoning on that? I wouldn't think that the population of ACW has gone up that much that it would increase that tonnage by that significant amount. I wondered if anybody would offer an explanation for that.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll defer to our staff. Tom, would you have a comment in response to the question, please?
Yeah, we did discuss that with Waste Management, and that, for whatever reasons, the trend, they had indicated that it's gone way up since COVID. They don't have a really good explanation for why the tonnage has gone up. So obviously, we're looking at space in our landfill. We want to minimize that, but they'll tell us that they've got different packing materials and this and that, but I haven't heard something that's really satisfying for an answer.
Follow up?
Yes, please, and thank you for that, Tom. Councillor Snowblood.
I was curious to know if it had anything to do with food waste, or if it was more, like you say, packaging waste.
Any comment, Tom?
They didn't indicate that there was an increase in food waste.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor, please.
Yeah, I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but I'd like Tom to ask them again why it has gone up that much, because I don't see that many more people using it, and when you're driving down the road, I don't see any extra bags and stuff there. Like, if there's big loads, there's something like myself, they load it on a trailer and they take it up there, but it's mainly bags on the side of the road. And I know I only drive mainly through Colborne, but I don't see that big of an increase, so I'd like to somebody ask them if they can see where that extra tonnage is coming from.
Okay, thank you for that. Is that possible, Tom?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Forster and then Councillor Blake.
Okay, thank you. So with these bins, there'll be an extra, instead of bag tags, that'll be on your taxes, correct?
Thanks for the questions.
For today's purposes, this is a contract just to pick up the garbage, but these bins that we're tying, it's not going to happen probably till June 2026. And I forgot your question already again, sorry.
There'll be an extra
microphone.
There'll be an extra bill on your taxes to cover the bag tag, correct?
If you opt in to receive a bin, you'll receive a bin. Waste Management will deliver it to your home. You'll be charged an applicable rate, and I think I indicated the other day at the budget meeting it could be anywhere between $100 to $150 on your tax bill as a local charge, and that's in lieu of bag tags.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Blake?
That just answered my question as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're considering the contract, and the question will be to council. If we agree with this, and ask staff to bring back the contract for a future meeting for formal authorization, and I will ask for a show of hands on this. And that is supported by council. Thank you. Do any members of council have a committee report that they would like to present at this time? Councillor Forster, please.
Sorry about that. I attended 2 meetings, Dr. Recruitment on March 5th. We discussed MOU in terms of reference. That's all it was about. And then last week I was at a CHIP meeting, and there's an ATV map coming out shortly. It's still got to be tweaked and stuff. I learned quite a few things since I have one. You need a license plate to drive on the road and be licensed. And you're supposed to stay to the right, and county roads, only farmers can use them. You can't use them for recreational use. So that's about it for that. And the OPP, he had an excellent presentation. Apparently the people that lived at the Bluffs were quite upset when 21 was closed for 5 days. But it's a $110 fine to go around road closed sign, and you lose 3 demerit points. And 3 cruisers were badly damaged during bad weather this winter. And the MTO, if you're over 80 now, you just have to go to a Service Ontario to get your license renewed. And Morris Turnberry talked about how Amish traffic is damaging their roads and what they're doing about it. So you should maybe have a discussion with them. Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Any further, and just to follow up on that, I received many emails from residents of the Bluffs expressing their concern on the road being closed where it has, and I have subsequently reached out to Inspector Ryan Olmsted and asked for a discussion on that, and he indicated that that will be a topic of discussion. And I've also had that conversation with MPP Thompson. Councillor Snowden, please.
I was going to ask for that, for somebody to look into that with the Bluffs.
Yes, and thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, and I received many emails, and I have followed up on that with, as I indicated, with the OPP and also with MPP Thompson on that. So that will be a subsequent discussion, I was told. Okay. Any further committee reports? Seeing none, thank you. Is there any new business that anyone would like to bring forward for a future meeting discussion? Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, thanks. These come up during our budget conversations, so there's a few of them. The number one, I'd like to do the township to do a review of our cemetery fees. Do you want me to just read them, or does council agree?
No, I think we should do them individually. So I'll just ask for a show of hands if council is in support of this to come back to a future meeting, and that is the cemetery fees. And that is supported by council. Thank you. Please continue, Councillor Miltenberg.
Yeah, I think we need to review our community granting policy again. It is new, and every year we go, oh, because we hadn't thought of that. I can reach out to staff with specific passages that we talked about, so we could have a staff report first if you'd like. But I think it's probably good to review the policy at least every 3 years anyway. But since it is brand new, I think we should review it annually for now.
Okay, so the intent is for a council discussion on community granting policy, and staff would bring forward any information they have at that time. Show of hands if we're in support of this. And that is supported by council. Thank you. Please continue.
We talked about setting up a reserve, and my notes are a little fudgy here, but I think Ellen will know what I'm talking about. Reserve transfers to roads, bridges. That's all I wrote down, but somebody will know what I'm talking about.
Okay, thank you for the question. I'll defer to our treasurer, Ellen McManus, for a comment, if you would, please, Ellen.
If I recall, I think what you're referring to is a surplus allocation policy where at year end we allocate any surplus based on percentages to various asset categories, so roads and bridges, buildings. And the way I see that happening is looking at our asset management plan and determining where the gaps are and how we should be saving for those asset categories. Does that sound right?
That sounds like exactly what I meant, Alan.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. Councillor Snowden, please.
Just to chime in, I had wrote down allotment of reserves to capital, example, bridges and roads. Does that clarify anything?
You're good with that, Ellen? Okay, so I will ask for a show of hands again. CAO, did you have a comment to make on this, please?
I know Alan's already got this in the works. She plans on bringing back a reserves policy in the future once we had the budget done. So this was already in the works, but if council wants to support her and bring it forward, she's already working on it as we speak.
Okay, thank you. So I'll ask for a show of hands if we would like a discussion at this on this topic at a future meeting. And that is supported by council. Anything else, Councillor Miltenberg?
Yeah, one final one. We did talk at the budget time about the difficulty staff must be having on budgeting, what coming out of COVID, and now we've got the tariff wars, whatever's going on, who knows, world events that are really affecting us. And so historically we get 1 year of what happened. And I think, for example, Tom said when he was talking about a grader, I think it was a grader, some piece of machinery, he said, well, this is already more than I was expecting, but who knows what it'll be by the time it comes. And so that makes me think that we should have a couple things happen, that we should have 3 years at least. I mean, ideally, I would do it 5 because I'd look at post-COVID and going on, but then at least you could see if there was a real spike, then staff doesn't have to say on every number. And this number is strange because of this tariff. Like the grocery stores are already putting the T up on things so you can see why your prices are inflated. I'd like to be able to see that when I look at the budget. So, and one way to see that would be multiple years. So my suggestion is that the next budget, 2 things happen. We have at least 3 years so we can see the categories that are taking big spikes and why, and staff doesn't have to, do cartwheels trying to explain to us why their budgets are so different. And I'm assuming they will be, and I don't know what categories, and they don't either. And the other thing is, I think that all the community grants should be on one page. Even the ones like that we do ahead of time, like the Menacet Bridge or the CAT scanner or whatever, because then we can see exactly how much we are giving to community initiatives, regardless if they're under our community granting policy. Because $20,000 a year to the Menacet Bridge is a community initiative. It's not under our community granting policy, but it's in that category. And I'm more comfortable when I can see what we're spending in each category, and to flip back between pages makes it harder for everyone, not just me. So that's what I would like to see. And to summarize, because I did use a lot of words and I told you I wouldn't. 1, I'd like to see at least 3 years comparison in the 2026 budget. And 2, I'd like to see all community initiatives on the same page so we can have a cumulative total, which we did get from Ellen this year, but I'd like to be able to see it first. So thank you.
Okay, clerk, please.
Just to clarify, Councillor Miltenberg, your last request, is that specific to the community grants?
No, like the community grants were on one page, but there was the money that we'd agreed to give a multi-year doesn't show up on that page, right? Or the one time to the Dungannon, to the, the McKay Center, that was not on that page, and I consider that also a community initiative. And so to me, the community grants policy is to help communities, and I'd like to know all the initiatives we're doing to help communities. And I think the things like medical requests from the AMGH and all those things, they should be on that page. And I know Mark will concur, because he did it the day, that they used to all be on the same page. And now I think maybe because we're getting better at them, they don't fit on the same page. I don't know. But that's what I would like to see.
Okay, thank you. Clerk, please.
So to clarify, do you want 3 years of community grants on that comparison? Like what they've received over the last 3 years?
Yeah, I would think all of them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. CAO, please.
So I'm just going to clarify. So this is the budget. So Ellen's here, and she obviously heard your comments, and she will take your advice and maybe take a look at it next year when she does the budget, creating the columns and doing a separate sheet for the community grants or whatever, granting the grants that we have in place. So Ellen's heard you, so we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all. I know it takes more time, and knowing I'm going to ask you in February for something, or March for something next March, is a little easier, I think. So thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Councillor Forster, please.
Can I dovetail on? So like you were talking, like in the budget, we only had like last year. Before you'd have like 2 years before that. I found that handy too, but I don't know if that's what you're asking, or am I correct? Okay, thank you.
Okay, understood by staff.
Ellen?
Ellen?
Yep, that's clear. Thanks.
Okay.
I am not able to hear anything.
Yeah, I can't hear anything either.
No problem. That's because I didn't have my microphone on. I apologize for that. So we have nothing under correspondence for direction, under correspondence for information. We have the Huron County Federation of Agriculture Local Politicians Forum. The date by my memory is the 28th, correct? And I am able to attend that this year. They have invited 2 people from ACW Council to attend. Is there anyone else that would like to attend this day? Councillor Hickey, please.
I would be interested, yes.
Okay, and Councillor Miltenberg? You're interested also? Okay. That's 3. They've invited 2 staff. How do you propose to handle this?
Make a decision, council.
Okay. Yeah, Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Well, I definitely think there needs to be somebody from the dairy industry there and an active farmer. So I think that either you or Glenn, me or Glenn, sorry, I'm not firing on all cylinders here. Glenn, I'm sorry, happy to step back if Evan wants to know, so long as you bring forward, the comments that I'd be making on behalf of the farmers.
Absolutely. That's not a problem. Okay, so do you want a show of hands for that? If council is agreeing that Councillor Hickey and myself will attend on behalf of ACW Council. Show of hands if you're in support of this. And that is supported. Opposed?
No, Glenn, I just have a question.
Yep, please.
If there's an opportunity for you to go on behalf of the county and me to still go on under ACW, I would really appreciate that.
Yeah, not a problem. And no, I will not be attending on behalf of the county.
Rats. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. As my term as warden is completed. So the upcoming events, the OGRA conference from the 30th of April to the 30th of March, 30 to the 2nd of April. I have registered for that. Amo, Councillor Miltenberg, myself have registered. We do have a closed session today, so we'll do the bylaws if that's okay. And the first would be the appointment of the CMEC. And I will entertain a mover and a seconder for this. Councillor Blake and Forrester, that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 18, 2025, being a bylaw to appoint a community emergency management coordinator for the Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh, and then it now be read severally, a first, second, and third time, and finally pass this 18th day of March, 2025. All in favor of this motion? Bylaw is read, and that is carried. Thank you. As indicated, we do have a closed session today. And so I will entertain a mover and a seconder that we move into our closed session. Deputy Mayor Vanstone and Councillor Hickey, that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council move into a closed session in accordance with Section 239 in brackets 2 and brackets C of the Municipal Act, with the CAO, Clerk, Public Works, and CBO remaining in attendance at 9:58 a.m. for the purpose of discussing proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land for the municipality of local board. All in favor of the motion is read. And that is carried. Thank you very much to everyone for joining our meeting this morning. And we will give our clerk the opportunity to secure the meeting. We will be in recess and resume at 10:05. We are in our closed session now. Our clerk, reporting out of our closed session, please.
There's nothing to report at this time.
Thank you very much. I will entertain a mover and a seconder for the confirmatory bylaw, please. Deputy Mayor Vanstone, Councillor Hickey, that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 19-2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Council meeting held on March 18th, 2025, and then it now be read severally, a first, second, and third time, and finally pass this 18th day of March, 2025. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. And a motion to adjourn, if you would please. Councillor Forrester and Blake, that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council does now adjourn to meet again on April 8th, 2025 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the mayor. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you very much to all members of council for your input today, and to all members of the public that joined us and our staff. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye, Anita. Bye, Jennifer.